Hello and welcome to the 2025 Pro Motocross preview on Vialle. Yes, this is named the post-race show to keep us in line with our regular broadcast schedule, but this is very much not a post-race show. In fact, it is more of a pre-race show, or whatever you may want to call it. Point is, we are here to preview 2025 Pro Motocross, and although we will only be 2 weeks on from Salt Lake City by the time that gates drop at Fox Raceway, so much would have changed, it will almost feel like a completely different sport, a different gear. So this is very exciting, not only to look forward to the racing, but also to preview all that could potentially happen. Also exciting is to share with you our loyal list of sponsors who radiate quality in all that they do, those being Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Motorex, and Fox Racing. Thank you to all of those companies for their loyal and unwavering support of all that we do here. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello.
Hello.
My excitement for Pro Motocross in that intro, justified, or maybe did I oversell it a little bit?
No, I think it's justified, particularly, both classes. I feel like 250s, we'll get to, probably has a little more of a defined championship contender. 450s, I have a lot of interest in because, I don't know, I feel like for the most part, I wouldn't say a complete level playing field coming in, but a little bit in terms of, even though Jett and Eli have both been off and you could say, oh, they were able to start on outdoors, they both don't have a ton of time. I would say, coincidentally, Eli probably has the most time, right? 5-6 weeks. Jett's a little bit less. Hunter's a little bit less. Cooper switched to outdoors extremely late. He only rode, from what I was told, outdoors one day before Supercross ended. He basically switched the Monday after Salt Lake, and then Chase didn't really switch till the week before Salt. Was it the week after Pittsburgh? He kind of did a heavy outdoor week.
The week after Pittsburgh.
But then you have guys like Aaron and Malcolm and RJ and some of those more outside guys that switched, not fully switched, but talking to Aaron, a lot of them, their kind of core group that trains the Garrett Bakers, I think went to outdoors on Mondays, like almost 2 months ago.
Yeah, when I went to Bakers, AP was riding outdoors, but Chase and Tom were riding Supercross. So that side of the program did move quicker.
So I just like the balance coming in. We have a lot of question marks, guys returning. Maybe your guys that are a little more on the outside looking in, the kind of guys that would be fifth or leaning a little outside, have more prep. Your big contenders aren't maybe as prepared. So at least leaves some question marks to be solved at the first couple of rounds. At least leaves me hopeful.
I wasn't planning to ask this question, but it's just dawned on me that it's quite important. This is so exciting. On a scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 100%, whatever you choose, how much are you concerned, or do you believe this could end up being a runaway from one rider?
The concern is a little bit there, and we still have. Okay, I know Webb seems fired up about this Pro Motocross season, but of course we've never seen him really perform on a 450 outdoors at a championship level. Eli is coming off injury, hasn't really raced, unless, as my memory defeating me, the new Yamaha, he did like a little bit last year. Like, he hasn't really had a full season on that generation bike yet outdoors. Jett is coming in injured, and even though Jett has perfect season, he is on a little bit of spree of injuries, some back-to-backs. Like, then it defaults to, okay, Chase is on the same bike last year that he won on and is firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, there's a small part of me that's like, could Chase be the runaway, or could Jett pull off some insane magic? Like, those two fall in the category of, could they run away with this if we're just missing something here?
Okay, perfect segue, because I have been quite adamant for months now that for Pro Motocross, Jett and Chase are 1A and 1B, and that is exclusive. Prado, Tomac, Hunter will be great, but in my mind, Jett and Chase are 1A and 1B, a step above those guys, and the title comes from either one of those, as well as a majority of wins. Those are our stars. Is that over the top, or can you somewhat agree with that?
No, I can agree with that because, okay, take like Eli's situation, for instance, there is still a question mark, where he going to be at pace-wise with these guys, if it takes a couple rounds, if it's a little hit or miss. Pro Motocross, it's just such a longer moto. It's so much rougher. Like, you just think that kind of regardless of the situation, minus big crashes, Chase or Jett should be able to come back and be on the podium every single weekend. So it gives somebody like Webb or Tomac or somebody that wants to be in this, they got to be there at round one, and then they got to be there every single week. It doesn't feel like Eli could come into this and take a couple rounds to get going. Like, you just would think at that point that Chase and Jett would build up too much of a lead, the two of them, in some shape or form.
Okay, I'll take it a step further. Even when everyone's at 100%, I still believe that Jett and Chase are your 1A and 1B. Even I'm talking individual races now, not so much championship. Because,
100%, that's a tough one because, we like Eli the last time, he was truly healthy and truly firing on all cylinders and outdoors. He's amazing outdoors. So if you're giving me full 100%, all that's cleared off the table, I go 1A, 1B, and 1C.
But you mentioned Eli not racing this generation of Yamaha outdoors. Eli, with the exception of some last year, very small sample size, hasn't raced outdoors in going on 3 years now, and that.
Well, that's why I said, like, if you throw me that, he's not on 1A, but 1A, 1C. If you throw me at 100%, like he's had some time on this and was coming in as firing on all cylinders. 1A, B, 1A, 1B, 1C. Okay, we'll
get to Eli. Let's circle back to Jett and Chase. Jett's been on the bike for 5 weeks, I want to say, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, somewhere in that range.
6. Yeah, or 5. 5 is under Eli, sorry.
I would not be surprised if Jett comes out and wins a Fox Raceway, because Jett is Jett, and Jett almost anything's on the table in my mind. Anything's possible. He's a phenomenal talent, and therefore I will never limit my expectations of him, even if he is coming in behind the 8 ball. But if he does come out and win at Fox Raceway, how much of a statement, how damning will that be for the rest of the field? That will be the ultimate statement, maybe the biggest statement we've seen in years.
Yeah, because he falls in a situation where he could very easily, I don't want to say the words cruise it in because it's not, but if he just settled in and went 3-3, that's wildly acceptable for what he is, for the short prep time coming off a major knee surgery. Like, he could very easily do that, ride in, and be like, that's awesome, he's in this thing. Yeah, if he comes out 1-1, it's a stamp. Although the only other part I will say is Jett has a great track record at this race. So there's a part of me also, like, he comes out and does it. Yes, it stamps him instantly as a title favorite, but it doesn't tell me that Chase can't go to Hangtown the next weekend and 1-1 against Tim. I don't know. It doesn't. If he goes 3-4 at the opening round, or he goes 1-1. If he goes 1-1, it's definitely cool because of the prep time and the storyline. But it doesn't change my opinion of where I label him as a title contender, or in title contention, or his quality. Neither answer really changes it for me.
I think that a majority of the fans, industry, are in line with me, where if Jett goes 3-4, the sky is falling, and that's the most surprising thing we've ever seen. If he goes 1-1, even with limited prep, all of that sort of stuff, I think everyone in the industry and fans collectively just do what I said and go, oh, it's Jett. Of course, yeah, it's Jett. That's par for the course. Which is an interesting dynamic for him to manage, because he's never come back from an injury of this degree. He personally knows how good he is outdoors. So although he will downplay it talking to people, I would bet there's something inside of him that's like, I'm still the best guy. So I would be very interested to see how A, the people around him react, and B, how he reacts if he does have a slow start, which again, for the record, I really don't think he will.
No, I agree. What leaning it towards Chase, like, same situation. 1-1 versus a 3-3, like, does any of it really matter for him at round one? Does it change your perspective on anything?
I think it does for Jett and Chase only, but again, because I'm placing them as 1A and 1B, so those are the riders who I have expectations of, whereas Eli, Jorge, Hunter, my expectations are all over the place. I really don't have set parameters of where I expect them to be, whereas Jett and Chase, I'm expecting them to be the cream that rises to the top, and I don't really care about exterior factors. I just have those expectations. But Chase should be good because A, he's healthy. B, he was raving about these bike setup gains that they made in a week before Salt Lake City, and as mentioned, Ian said that they've understood the hydraulics of the shock more, and that's made a game-changing amount of progress for them. So Chase seems to be pumped on his situation, and of course we know how good he was last year. So Chase is the one with very little discussion needed, I think. He should be great. If he isn't, I'll be shocked, as I think everyone else would be, because even his competitors, Chase is a rider that you look at and you go, well, what's holding him back? Aside from if you want to throw around a Supercross hangover, dealing with that crushing defeat, perhaps that, but other than that, I don't have anything, whereas I can come up with a laundry list for the other guys.
The one thing that really strikes me with Chase is, we've talked about it a little bit, and this isn't saying like an Eli or a Jett isn't in shape, but man, Chase last couple of years at times has just shown insanely how he can burn 230s and basically barely be breathing on the podium. And even those last couple Supercross performances when he would have a dominant night, it really didn't, not that taxing looking when he got off the podium. What was around, correct me, what was the race before Pittsburgh? Was that
East
Rutherford? That was the one where, he basically said the last 10 laps reason he wasn't breathing when he got off the bike. Jett does have a knee injury. You get to a real outdoor national, it's rough, things like that. I kind of wonder, okay, is Jett going to be really good for 20 minutes? Is he going to be a little bit off in the next 10 minutes? Just strength-wise, little things like that where I have no questions that Chase is going to be insanely fit at the opening round. Now, how does that play into the whole season? If he's already raced 17 Supercrosses and some of these guys are coming off not racing, how does that equal out halfway through the season? We'll see.
Well, taking that a step further or linking on from that, is it time, Supercross, Motocross, either or, that when we're previewing these series, we have to say, and this may be the ultimate jinx to touch wood, is it time to say that of the title contenders in each discipline, Chase Sexton is the most reliable, the least likely to miss races, and that has to factor into the decision to pick a title favourite? Are we at that point now? Because I kind of think we are. Maybe we weren't at the start of Supercross, but the fact that he survived that once again and so many of his peers didn't, I think that element is staring us straight in the face.
There's one part of me that leans, you have Eli on back-to-back injuries, Jett on back-to-back injuries, so if you go off of, the past year or two, Chase has been the most reliable in terms of injuries, but then the other part statistically also wants to tell me, what's the likelihood that Eli or Jett get hurt this many times in a row? I don't know. I could be swayed either way, but I get your point. Yes, it comes down to, of all of them, it's tough because Jett did not get to race the Spike Outdoor last year, even though they raved about it when Hunter switched and SMX was decent. We also saw them struggle to Supercross. We'll see how that actually carries into a true outdoor season. There might still be some question marks on bike setup. There's question marks on Jett's knee, just like I said, more strength, more just how we know he'll be fit, but just is the whole body going to cooperate the first couple rounds where Chase, I just have so little question marks about. He won the title last year. The bike's the same, but they've made improvements. We know he's insanely fit. He's not dealing with any injuries. So, why is Chase not the title fit? I'm daring to say this. I agree with you on the 1A, 1B thing, but if you had to, in the moment, make me declare a title favorite, just those reasons, it's hard not to say Chase.
Yeah, I guess my point is if you got a statistician to analyze, we have betting in the sport now, if you had someone who does the odds to analyze the numbers and the situations, you would look at the fact of races missed of Chase versus his title rivals, and that would lead you to make him the most likely pick to win the title. Let alone, even now, if you want to go back to the start of Pro Motocross last year to now, so effectively the last calendar year, Chase's win total compared to his peers is also so much higher. That's actually quite interesting to think about. I don't have it in front of me, but I would bet that he's won in that time period, again, the last year, in total, he must have won way more than double anyone else, because Webb was closest to him in wins in Supercross, but obviously didn't win at all outdoors last year. So the numbers are really leaning in Chase's direction if you take all emotion out of it, all knowledge, and purely rely on some sort of stat sheet, is my point.
Or if you go back to the year before, though, you still have a perfect season for Jett, and Chase came back and could not beat him.
That's true, although that adds to the podium record because there was a lot of second places. One thing's certain, Decal Works will have those number one plates shining come outdoors. And actually, for some reason, it's quite bizarre. Like, I'm struggling to process the fact that Chase will now be number one again. I don't know why. Every time I see a photo of Chase's bike on Instagram, I'm like, oh yeah. Even though, of course, we all know he won last year, it's a little bit of an adjustment, as it will be seeing Jett with the number 18 again for the first time since Supercross 24. But that's beside the point. What is clear is Decal Works will have the number one plates shining come Fox Raceway, and you too can have similar graphics that shine as brightly as Red Bull KTM Factory Racing's by heading to decalmx.com. And thank you to Decal Works for all of their loyal support of Vital MX, all of the post-race content, including this very podcast, which will, of course, be continuing throughout 2025 Pro Motocross. Moving on to Eli.
I was going to say, why don't we move the conversation to the other number one in the room? Just wasn't able to defend his number one. Is it fair to move it to Prado?
Oh, I actually had no idea who you were talking about then. I literally...
See, that's the part I'm throwing off. Our defending MXGP champion, is it right to the conversation moves to Eli, or should we be moving to Prado?
It moves to Eli because in my power rankings, in my mind, Eli is ahead of Prado.
Yeah.
So Eli has been back on the bike for some time. Again, it's that 6-week mark, I think. But from what I know, he has, in that time, I think it's fine now. But to begin with, he was dealing with more pain than expected. So I think that his prep wasn't full bore that entire period. I don't know. If I had to place a bet and I was being safe, I would bet on Eli going 4-4 at Fox Raceway because that's fairly middle of the road. I don't think he wins. For all the reasons we've kind of already discussed, lack of outdoor time in recent memory, the fact he is coming off of an injury. I almost liken this outdoor season to last year's Supercross, where it was just a process the entire time. And I feel like with the time missed since 2022, this will also be a process of highs, lows, inconsistency, some glimmer, some head-scratching weekends, and ultimately we'll end up with Eli third or fourth in the championship with maybe 2 wins and looking forward to 2026. Maybe that's unfair, but in all honesty, and to be blunt, I just don't see Eli matching Jett and Chase. I just don't.
See, that conversation for Supercross, I can understand. I can't fully agree with that Pro Motocross just because of Eli's tenure in the class and what he's done past performance. Like, I agree with you a fourth, but I'm more of a 2-4 for the opening round. I think Pro Motocross is more ingrained, Nationals in general is more ingrained in him. I think it's easier for him. Like, there's the fitness side, which we don't have a lot of questions on Eli on. Like, the actual riding sense of it, like, I think it's more natural for him to come back to his style, the Bulldog. Like, I do not see him leaving the season with only 2 wins. If so, I would be shocked if he'd wanted to. By then, he'll have signed a new deal. But if he only gets 2 wins in a Pro Motocross season, I think that guy would want to hang himself with a noose.
Okay, this is very blunt, and I'm not necessarily saying this is how I feel before the comments section goes crazy. But in the interest of conversation, 2022 was 3 years ago now, and Chase pushed Eli as far as he possibly could outdoors. Since then, Eli playing fast and loose with the facts here, but for all intensive purposes, basically hasn't touched an outdoor track. And in that time, Chase has had his game raised by Jett, then had a near-perfect season last year, of, again, playing fast and loose with the numbers here, but in essence, it was a dominant year. So Eli has been stood still outdoors, and Chase, and for all intensive purposes, Jett, because we know that Jett and Chase are fairly equal outdoors, have jumped forward X amount. So Eli has to work through a process to get there. You can't tell me that in missing 2 seasons, Eli's going to come out and now suddenly have raised to that same level because he doesn't know what that level is.
See, I always say this on this. I understand the rider's standpoint of saying everybody keeps getting faster, everything keeps getting better. I don't think like you take somebody of Eli's caliber getting outdoors, like even he was very good at destinations last year with very minimal time. He was, after a huge layoff, never racing that bike outdoors. He was on the podium in his second race back at Butts Creek. Like, I understand where you're coming from. I do think, like, yes, there is going to be a period to getting a little bit of a period of getting to where Jared Chase is, but I just don't see, like, again, the argument, especially outdoors, just from like, I just don't see him consistently the opening rounds being struggling to run with them. Especially, like I said, if we're talking about Jett with the lake, okay, even if Jett's got a little more raw speed, again, I feel like Jett's injury puts him at a physical disadvantage to an Eli. I think Eli can still run that pace just fine. Like, I can't see him off the podium at the opening round in one of the motos. I think it will come around quicker. Will there, like, I agree with your sense, like, Jett and Chase are on an amazing level right now, and it might catch Eli out a little bit at the beginning, but I don't think it's one of those things like, yeah, it doesn't shock me if one moto, like, Eli just flat out has a bad moto and he's fourth and he's 30 seconds down, but another moto, he'll be second, 10 seconds down and be, like, kind of in range with those two, are battling one of those two for the race, and he'll pick up quickly over the first couple rounds. Again, his caliber, especially where he was coming back in Supercross and him being a better pro motocross guy, I have a very hard time with the argument of, like, hey, even if he's not, like I say, he's not with them the first 2 or 3, that he can't get to a point that he can pull that by 3-4 rounds in, he can bridge that gap and get multiple wins. Like, if not, like, that kind of Eli, if that's really where we're at, then, like, should he be continuing longer?
Well,
I don't think he's in the position to want to be just, like, feeling like those guys are gone. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they've reached a level I can't reach, and he's not going to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Well, this is irrelevant to the conversation, but to that point, when Eli re-signed for this year, the PR was from Yamaha, which he's not returning to, the PR was very clear that this would be the end of his full-time career, essentially meaning no pro motocross coming up. We know that he's talking to Ducati and we know that he's talking to KTM. I believe, and I don't know, but from what I gather, those are Supercross-only discussions. So whatever way it goes, I'm still of the opinion that this is Eli's last pro motocross season. Now, again, we've played this game with Eli now for a couple of years, so who knows? But I'm still of the opinion that this will be his last pro motocross season, no matter how it goes.
I can swing either way at this point. Like, I get it. Yeah, that's what the PR said. That's where he stood at. But then again, the man's asking for a 2-year deal, and he's going to another bike. We'll see. Like, I can see about anything changing, especially the Ducati one, because as we've talked to a few people inside, it's like if he goes racing with them, he's probably their sole guy next year. Like, can't imagine they only want to race half the year.
Unless there's a rider out there who could take an outdoor-only contract.
Are you going to pitch your man Jeffrey Hurlings already?
Well, maybe Ben Watson or anyone. I could pitch anyone. But no, I think Eli, in my power rankings, Eli is clear third.
The word that somebody at Ducati told me this week is we're not interested in showing up at a race for anything worse than a third. So better tell Ben Watson and he can figure out how to podium every single outdoor national.
That's bold, I think, because I'm not sure that I've heard that from Ducati at all in MXGP.
But no, solid third. So I think, like, US-wise, the hierarchy or where we perceive to be the podium guys is fairly obvious amongst those three. So then we drop back behind Eli, and I'm sure, like, I was laughing. One of our videos this week was question of the week with a bunch of the guys asking, who is their pick for the title, and there was a good amount of comments from people that were bummed out that not a single rider said Jorge Prado. Now, me and you have both spent a fair amount of time preseason before Supercross championing, like, give the dude a break. Like, you don't understand how hard this move is going to be. Not to say he won't be there, but who's fourth? Webb? Plessinger? Prado?
No, you've mentioned Webb a few times in this podcast, and in my mind, like, I don't know if we get to Webb, with all due respect. But no, Prado, in my power rankings, I've been stuck on this forever. Jett and Chase 1A, 1B. Eli, third. Prado, fourth. Hunter, fifth. Spoiler alert of where we're going next. But is Prado a phenomenal rider? Yes. Have I seen him do mind-blowing stuff over the years? Yes. Have I seen him go toe-to-toe with the very best Jeffrey Hurlings and the very best Tim Geiser? Yes. And the very best Antonio Caroli? Yes. Prado will be a contender for this championship very, very soon. I just don't believe it will be this year because he's got to get used to the travel, the bike, the heat, the schedule, the tracks. That's without mentioning the fact that actually he has never come back from an injury of this degree, similar to Jett. So that in itself will be a process. There's just too much to learn this year, and similar to Supercross, I do believe this is a learning year. Now, in contrast, I know that Prado's expectations are to fight for a title. However, in super contrast, I know that Kawasaki are like, no, this is going to take some time. So that too will be a very interesting dynamic to follow. I just think that Prado's going to have not a rude awakening because that's way too aggressive, but I think that he's going to be like, oh, okay, this is a lot to take in.
I agree with that. Like I said, and I'm not trying to downplay it for anybody that wants to play the card of like, oh, you're downplaying what he's done GPs. It's just that hard. It's the same as if somebody tried to sit here and be like, oh, Eli Tomac's going to move to GPs next year and be, winning races left and right. It's hard. It's extremely hard, especially when you're changing. It's one thing like I would have a little bit of a different opinion. Not much. I mean, the GP program is different enough. Like if he stayed in the same camp, but the move to Cowie, like clearly it shows what they think of it again because of how long term they signed him. They know he can get there, but they're not worried about it now. They didn't short term this guy like, 2 years and we'll see what happens. They gave him a 3+1. They know he's going to get there, but they're also not worried. They're not stressed that it doesn't happen this year. What do you think his realistic result is at Fox? Do we go 6.5? Do we go 4.7? Do we go 3.8?
No, I think 5.4 or 5.3. I think those are
5.3.
I think those are about right. I think that it's funny. I would almost say the same about Eli, Jett, Hunter, everyone. I can see all of these riders having a subpar first moto, then making radical changes for the second motor and being like, okay, now I'm closer to the window. I almost feel like that's the situation these riders, bar Chase, who again is in a very stable situation, will be in. But they can't all do that because that simply doesn't work unless we're going to have a very bizarre top 5 in Moto 1. I will say, also to build on what I said, if Prado defies my expectations and is on immediately and is in the fight for this championship, I would argue this is the most impressive thing he's ever done in his career. That is the magnitude of the challenge that I think he's facing. If he is, as I said, in this from the start, I will not be able to applaud him enough because I seriously think this is a severe learning curve that he's about to embark on. And I think that it will be even more of an adjustment because it will seem like comfortable surroundings. So therefore it'll be more of a shock when it's like, well, hang on, why isn't this as I'm expecting? But I know he's fairly happy with his shoulder and he's extremely happy with the bike. I think he loves the bike. He thinks it's the best thing ever. I think he would have loved to have this in GPs.
One thing I'm really curious about is like I would argue the GP difference of like the whole weekend schedule because we cram everything into one day. It's a different type of intensity. It wears you out in a different way versus 2-day building into it, having more track time. However, Prado is also the king of the quali races. So clearly he adapts quickly. So does that play a part into his transition? Because there's a lot of GP guys I would argue like, okay, the schedule is going to be very different, basically having to time qualify quicker, you're into the races quicker. But that also doesn't seem to be something that has bothered Jorge clearly in the past.
No, because I would argue the qualifying races are just a result of him being a whole shot man and then just one running away. I think that's his quality, which, to be fair, maybe that works. Maybe he gets a whole shot of Fox Raceway, and although it's an uncomfortable scenario, Chase, Jett, and Eli are in the battle for their lives for fourth after a subpar start, and by the time they get to second, and Jett, Eli, and Chase have mucked around with each other, Prado's 20 seconds up the track, and it doesn't really matter. That's also a possible reality, and a reality that the MXGP riders have faced for some time. We know Prado's a great starter. Yes, it will be interesting to see how that is on the Cowie, but we also know, to his detriment sometimes, he's also a very good defensive rider. So he's going to be in a position to succeed, I think, multiple times. And for that reason, I do think he wins this year, without doubt. I'm just not sure that comes for a while.
Speaking of defensive rider, difference in just ways of life and racing, everything. If he rides the way he did at some of the GPs against a Chase, a Jett, or an Eli, does it end different than it did in the GPs or no?
Well, also, I think it is interesting with the American tracks are so much wider with so many line options. Maybe it just does, maybe he can't do it here. Maybe that'll be an adjustment in itself of like, typically in GPs, I could defend my position in X way, right or wrong. But that just isn't working here. Like, that also is an element because in America, there's so much more emphasis on just raw speed, I think. And I don't know if that's ever been... Prado's more of a strategic rider. So I think that in itself will be a lesson too. There's a lot to learn. There's just so much to learn. And I think that we need to go into this with our eyes wide open as to what Prado's going to face. But make no mistake about it. Regardless of what happens over the next 11 rounds, for 2026, my outlook on Prado is far, far different to what it is currently. Because, as I said, this is a process. And Prado will be shining in his Fox Racing gear. That much we do know. We don't need to debate that. Bold, untamed, and pushing the boundaries of aesthetic, style, and design, Fox Racing's new Spring MX graphics, launching with Hello Future, disrupt the status quo and make no apologies for the interruption. Compromised of head-to-toe kits, plus a slew of head-turning men's and women's lifestyle pieces, its spirited graphic combined with dialed-in fit, comfort, and construction sends a message loud, clear, and confidently. The future belongs to those brave enough to answer the call. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast, of course. So moving on, Hunter is, of course, he's coming up next because in reality, maybe it's actually rude and unjust to leave him that far down the list because he did give Chase a reasonably good run last year. Did he come out on top a lot? No, but he was there and he was very much pushing Chase all the way. So would you put Hunter higher than this, or is this about fair for now?
Oh, this is an extremely tough one because the sampling size on the 450 is not small because we had a season, but it's small in terms of competition because, like, I fully understand why you're placing Hunter here, and I do agree. I think it's harder to place him higher because, you know, you got to give tenure to those that have done it, like in Eli's case, tenure because of what Jorge's done in GPs. But then, man, it's also hard again because of sampling size because, yeah, he was second to Chase a lot, but also some other players were missing. And we've seen it in outdoors. People tend to fill those gaps. I know you're going to call me crazy, but then, like, my counter example is even though Webb's not a great outdoor guy, like, Webb is podium. The last time we saw him on a KTM when he was super miserable, he was still podium outdoor nationals. And as a Supercross titleist, like, it's... you can argue so many different ways. Yes, Hunter's is more recent, so I agree with your Hunter placing. Agree with your placement of Hunter, but then it's hilarious because I also want to argue one or two people that might be able to beat him, but then also I'm like, well, no, he was second to Chase it like every race last year, so how can you say that?
I think, again, to retrace my steps, Jett and Chase's 1A and 1B is so certain in my mind I will be shocked if anyone really gets in there and upsets the establishment. But Eli, Jorge, Hunter... if those end up in whatever way, Eli 5th and Hunter 3rd or Jorge 3rd or whatever, that isn't a surprise to me. So these riders are more interchangeable in my mind, at least, than Jett and Chase are. But
does it worry you at all for take Hunter's situation? Let's say he just straight up can't beat like if Eli and Jorge just kind of have his number early in the season and he's still in there mixing up with them, but they kind of have his number the majority of the time. Does that worry you at all? Because, hey, Eli has been out so long, Jorge's adapting. Like, does that change your opinion on what Hunter's capability is on the 450? Or do you go off of because those guys are struggling, like Hunter should be straight up mixed with them, if not being able to get away from them earlier in the season?
Well, let's not overlook the fact that Hunter is coming back from injury. And I think if he was coming in here with a full Supercross season, a full head of steam, then he is third on this list of power rankings of sorts. I also think that it's worth considering, and maybe we're overlooking the fact that Hunter has been back on a bike longer than Tomac, Jett, and Jorge. So all of those factors indicate that he should be higher. But then again, you can't escape the fact that he is coming back from an injury. So I don't know. I honestly don't know about Hunter. I really don't. Because on one hand, I want to say maybe he doesn't win a race this year, but on the one hand, I want to say maybe he wins multiple races this year. And I don't really think I'd be surprised or criticised or applaud either way. Maybe I'm more confused about Hunter than I am anyone, because again, as you alluded to, the results tell us, or his track record tells us, that he should be held in a much higher regard. So I don't know. I'm very confused.
Curious who your next one is. I feel like I should know who it is, and if it's not who I think it is, I'm going to be baffled.
No, well, now we'll just kind of throw them all in a hat and we'll discuss. But after Hunt, that's my clear top 5 in my mind. In my mind, those riders are going to be a step above everyone else. Then you have AP, J. Coop, and Webb.
I'll say I have a feel like that is a tough one, man. I lean out of those three. It's annoying. We're talking about these three outside the top. We're not okay. Here's the hard part. I don't think either of us think we're gonna be outside the top 5. I understand your reasoning. J. Coop, like Justin was outside of Chase and Hunter. And we lost Jett after we had Jett for 5 races last year or 4. We lost him after Southwick. J. Coop was the next best guy in that group. He's clearly better this year. He's clearly a great starter. Where's our like high low on J. Coop? Because I could go either way.
It's impossible. And this is very much similar to previewing Supercross. Like someone tweeted me yesterday saying Valentin Guillot should be 7 to 10, right? And my reply was yes. Except for the fact that this is such an insanely deep field that no. But typically, yes, he would be around 7 to 10, but you have to just knock everyone back a couple of positions because of the outlook of this field. I would argue we've not had an outdoor season again, this feels very much like previewing Supercross.
No, it's sad that we had so many injuries in Supercross, but because of how they played out, we have way more of these guys for timing of being back for outdoors than I would have expected. Because again, you look at Aaron, you look at Webb, you look at Jacob, and I could sit here and argue why all of them could get podiums. Again, I agree with you, between their guys, especially Jett and Chase, 1A, 1B. So I'm sitting here with the 3 we're talking about now going, oh, they could get thirds. But then does that mean I'm considering that Tomac, Jorge are going to blow it that often? Because I could argue that any of the 3 now we're talking about, and sorry, also Hunter, as we mentioned, I could argue that any of the 3 we're talking about right now can still podium a race.
I think also, of course, we're going to have injuries, we're going to have attrition, but factoring into my outlook here is I think that Webb doesn't do the whole season.
So I got a really funny one for that. I talked to somebody in his camp this week, and that conversation came up, and he said I talked to this person on Tuesday, and he had talked to Coop that morning, and Coop's exact words were, I don't get why everybody says I'm not racing outdoors. I'm racing every single round. I wish everybody would quit saying that.
Well, the thumb just looms. It looms. It's torn. So, yes, he's told me on record multiple times that it doesn't affect his plans, and I guess it doesn't need surgery, and he's very lucky and fortunate that it's not needed surgery. But it's still there, so it's almost impossible to ignore. But maybe we should just take his word for it, I guess.
Yeah. Like I said, the person in his camp was joking with me about it. He goes, I think some people took his comment at the press conference out of context. He goes, he was just more pissed at the first question the guy asked him was about that, because he said he's the most motivated he's been to show what he can do on a 450 outdoors. And he commented that the most exciting part is, since he basically came on board, he really wants to race the Star 450 outdoors. Being on this program and in this bike really excites him.
Well, and also, I guess the factor that might contribute to the motivation is, to my knowledge, this might be his last outdoor season.
The way
it's either this year or next year. I can't remember.
He's full year on his next year's contract still. From what I was
it's
told
definitely this year or next year, because there is a Supercross only element in this contract at some point. But I think I heard someone recently say it's actually a year sooner than people are expecting. But I don't know. It's coming up, that's for sure. So maybe that, either way, whether it's his last one or his penultimate one of outdoors, I think that in itself would contribute to the motivation. But I think AP J. Coop, and Webb are kind of fairly plug and play. You kind of know where they'll be. They're not going to win. They're not going to be champion, but they're going to be in and around 3 to 8 and take some trophies at some point. But for the most part, maybe fairly unrecognizable. Although you champion J. Coop, I think I would pick AP to rise above that group and kind of surprise, purely based on his form last year and just the way that he seems to be trending.
Here's the thing. So this goes for both J. Coop and AP. Pick one or both. Can either of them win a moto?
Ridiculous ridiculous disclaimer, but of course, maybe there's injuries and maybe that makes it easier. But as it stands right now, no.
As it stands right now,
With everyone healthy, I mean.
with everyone healthy, as it stands right now, how many overall winners do we get, and how many moto winners do we get?
Well, Jett and Chase win
Perfect.
an overall. Eli wins an overall. I think Jorge gets 1 or 2 at some point, maybe later in the season. And I think
Moto
that's
winner
it.
or overall?
Overall. And I think we end on 4. I think it's those 4.
4 overalls.
Yep.
So 4 moto winners or more moto
No,
winners? You get
Hunter will win a moto. And I think that's it.
No AP, no JQ.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, did AP win a moto? Did either of them win a moto last year? J-Cube definitely not, I want to say. But AP, I'm kind of blanking a little bit. I feel like Chase was fair. Chase was maybe more dominant than we're remembering at the end of the season.
Well, and the other thing I think we forgot, even I did, is actually Jett was in the championship longer than I realized. I thought he had gone out a little bit sooner.
Yeah,
I think Jett was there for the first 5 rounds almost, wasn't he?
It's actually crazy to look at now in hindsight. The final 13 motos, Chase lost 2 of them.
Were those both to Hunter?
Yes.
Yeah, because we had Jett through
Southwick round 5.
He did 5 rounds before he was out.
Yeah, I feel fairly comfortable with my list of winners and non-winners there, but you of course are believing that both J-Coop and AP get in there, or just one of them?
If everything stands as is, one of them. But as soon as we lose,
people,
it's just one guy in that group, it can be very different out of the group above them.
I think maybe unfair to not include Barsha in that AP J-Coop web group.
He may not even race the opening round.
Yeah, that's true. I just feel like
those are from his own mouth this week because his knee's still not great. Yeah, he may or may not race the opening round right now.
Okay, and then we've got Anderson, Stewart, Nichols, Savacci. Any of those you want to say anything about or stand out for any reason?
Do we think, because what was Malcolm's results like last year? I know Malcolm was
quiet but better than expected. His best was a 5th overall, I think, at Budds Creek.
Yeah.
Certainly his best day, he went 6.5. But again, in this field now,
overall?
that 6.5 is going to be that 6.5 is going to be a little worse.
9-10.
Yeah.
That's the tough one. It's funny because we list through those, and then again we get to. I feel like the last couple years, and it's not that the guys haven't performed well, but we've had a lighter field. Then you get into our visiting friends, you get into the Harry Koulasses and the Benoit Paturel, and I'm having a hard time seeing how they'll get a top 10. They're that quality of rider, but I'm having a hard time seeing it.
I was going to end on end 450s on that. So Paturel will do the full season for Twisted T Suzuki. He is a better rider far and away than Harry Koulas. So use that as a meter, and then Valentin Guillot is doing Fox Raceway as a privateer on a Yamaha 450, and then I think he's maybe going to do the first couple as a privateer. He's looking for a ride. He has intentions to stay. Valentin Guillot, in his current form, is a much better rider than Benoit Paturel is, and therefore even much better than Harry Koulas. So Guillot will surprise people, and I think Paturel as well, but Guillot especially will surprise people in that 9 to 12 range. He will potentially beat someone like Barsha, Stewart, or Anderson, and I think that in itself will be like, oh, look at that.
What about RJ?
That is a very good point. And that's actually really bad, but we almost forgot him. Maybe again, because similar to Webb, there's a part of me that's like, I don't know if he's really going to be there the whole time. I think RJ belongs in the AP J-Coop Webb group. He's definitely above Stewart, Anderson, Barsha sort of ranger. Again, I want to put Barsha higher, but he's coming in behind the 8 ball. So for all intensive purposes, we'll leave him where he is. But I think Hampshire is in the AP J-Coop group.
Like
one podium, maybe.
One podium. Dark horse. somebody that's going to defy expectations.
Well, I don't think there is one as far as championship or race
No
wins
championship, but like, because again, we have a deep field. I think defying expectations is even the like 5th to 10th place group.
I'll go Guillaume then. I don't know how long he's
Schock.
going to stick around. That's a very good one as well.
I'll go Cody Schock. It's been a few years since we were together in 21 when he killed it at the end of the season, but I know his 450 outdoor prep has gone very, very well so far. I'm hopeful for the guy to have his second coming of summer, but as I say, there's always like that guy every year. It's tough to bridge that and do it consistently, so we'll see.
Well, we will see, but it's going to be tough for everyone because this class is insane. Moving on to 250s. This is very much the Haiden Deegan show, and although, again, it's very deep, there are a lot of potential winners. In my mind, I don't know if there's someone who can take the fight to Haiden Deegan. Fair?
I think that's very fair. I'm having a very tough time with that one, even, amongst I know like Levi and Tom and a few guys will be extremely strong, but particularly like the opening 2 rounds, dude, I am not shocked if Haiden wins the first 6 motos.
Okay, so after a very
audacious as that is, it would not shock me.
After a very successful Supercross season, we are fairly certain the Yamaha Motor USA are going to add at least 1 title to their record in Pro Motocross, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and of course that is no surprise because Yamaha Motor USA is what champions are made of, contributed to so much over the years, and it's for good reason that Valentin Guillaume will attempt to prove himself as capable of having a full-time ride for the outdoors on a Yamaha YZ450F as a privateer. There's a very good reason why he has chosen that bike, and you should too. So thank you to Yamaha Motor USA for their support of this podcast. Behind Haiden, it's tough because I want to say that maybe this is a year that Tom Vialle kind of finds a bit more of his MXGP form outdoors, but it's almost surprising to me that we've not gotten there yet, so I'm almost wondering if maybe that's just not coming. I don't know.
The other thing I'm concerned on is, like, even he was talking about if he was stayed 250 next year, he already seems, he's been riding the 450 outdoors, mine seems a little bit there. He probably, I'm guessing, now, from what you saw at the Baker thing, he like Chase, he ran Supercross pretty late, correct?
Yeah.
Like, did not switch early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Ugh. What did he win 1 race last year? Was Ironman his only win last year?
I honestly can't remember, but I'm just looking here, and even at over the halfway point after round 6, he was already 43 points down on Haiden, and without any reason, really. The reason I was looking into that is because later in the season he had a 22 and a 17 on his scorecard. So I was like, well, maybe before those then, he was actually closer than we remember, and those really curtailed his title bid. But no, quite simply. I think that Vialle is 4th on my list, and again, this is setting us up perfectly for a potential Tom Vialle apology corner later down the road. That will, of course, be presented by Motorex when we get there. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care, and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. So if I have Tom Vialle 4th, in between him and Deegan, I think I put Hymas and Kitchen.
I would say, I think the tough part is I look back at last year's result, and it strikes me the same with some of the depth of the class. Okay, across the opening couple rounds, Haiden is basically like 1-1, 1-2, 2-1, 1-2, while Tom goes 4-1, Shimoda goes 9-1, Tom goes 2-3, Kitchen goes 2-4, Hymas goes 4-1. Like, the mix on these guys behind Haiden is where it gets interesting because, again, we get into the whole Pro Motocross, the points per moto. Yeah, somebody like Levi or Chance or Tom could be 2nd or 3rd every single weekend, but that could be with a result that's off the podium, and that's how those points get so spread out so quickly.
I think of the active riders, Hymas really shifted to outdoors quite early. I think he is fully set on making a serious bid for this title, and based on what we've seen, I think he is capable of that. So maybe saying that this is going to be Deegan's running away is a bit unfair to chance. And then, of course, Kitchen's been back on the bike for a little while now. And, of course, he's been fully focused on outdoors. So I think that maybe we are underselling the Hymas Kitchen element a little bit.
I think it's just the early season part. Again, even though we're talking about them shifted, it just comes down to what we saw last year is, are they there consistently at the beginning, or do they all kind of mix up each other's results? Because all it takes is the first 3 or 4 rounds of them, again, being fourth one moto win or a second and a fourth, while Haiden just goes 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 or something like that. And it's the points spread ends up being in Hayden's favor to defend for, the second half or 2/3 of the championship. That can happen fairly quickly. And I just have a hard time going. It's like, yes, Levi and Chance are my next 2 on the list, but yeah, just one of them, they have to separate themselves from each other, even not from the rest of the group, but even from each other. One of them just needs to not let Haiden get away early in the season, because then they're depending on a really bad moto for Haiden to reel down the points to bring it back into reality.
Do you think Hymas is ready to battle for a championship from a consistency point of view? He maybe should be. Maybe it is time.
I think it's a tough one. I think everything's there to take another step, but is it rude to say that I feel like most of these guys, yes, are going to try to give Haiden as good of a run as possible, but they're almost just setting themselves up for next year if he leaves the class?
I think that's overselling it a little bit. But in a similar vein, Joe Shimoda was 4th in the championship before he dropped out with a broken collarbone. So are we overlooking him? I don't think championship-wise, but are we overlooking him in the Vialle Hymas Kitchen dynamic?
I think we're playing off Supercross. Like, Joe just had kind of a meh into Supercross, so it's like it's the same though. Like, we're giving Chance a lot of leeway there because of how good he was and how quickly he switched over. But same thing, momentum plays into either of them. Do we look at also that their last 4 Supercrosses each were kind of meh?
I think, to be honest, I'm out on Joe at the moment because I think in general his Supercross season, bar Anaheim 1, was just borderline irrelevant. So Joe would be my pick to just be the disappointment because I haven't really seen much out of him. Again, finger injury, which is often overlooked and worth mentioning, but I think that was better around Arlington time and we never really got a better version of Joe Shimoda. What about Ty Masterpool? 5th in the championship last year, a fan favourite. Does he do anything as far as win or win a moto, of course? Podiums? Is he as much of a factor? Again, presumably he's been motoring down in outdoors for some time. That's, of course, why he was hired. Shocker, he wasn't hired for his Supercross skills.
I would have to say, I default to him higher than Joe. Podiums, yes. Huh?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, shocking, right? Big revelation there. Not much.
No, genuinely, I'm being serious. That does surprise me.
Okay. I thought we just kind of pushed Joe off to the side. I didn't think I was saying anything.
Well, we'll get to it, but I'm also kind of pushing Masterpool off to the side.
Okay. So in that argument, yeah, I think podiums. I don't know. Things are just odd there. Just the typical. Everything with a Masterpool is a mystery to me. We didn't come back for Supercross. We don't have a guaranteed deal for next year. Shocker. That's one. It was a multi-year, but according to the team, it's an option. Shocker, we're kind of waiting for outdoors. We've been a mystery. I don't know.
Fair to say that we should be putting a lot more emphasis on Ty Masterpool because this is very much make or break for an entire career. Fair?
Yes, I feel like it because we've been through Star, we've been through some different efforts where we've got our shot at PC, but if we don't. Again, we still have not shown that we can do Supercross. So if we don't have a really good outdoor season, and Mitch has a lot of spots filled already, and his is an option, where do we go after this if it doesn't go well? So it does feel like very much like career. It sounds crazy. You would think after last year, like, no, he's on a solid track, but it does feel a little bit like career in the balance.
I think that if he had the same year as last year, 5th in the points, 2 moto wins, I think if he were to have that would be considered a success. But I'm curious what the team would make of that. I wonder if they're shooting much higher and a similar year to last year is actually a sign of no progression and therefore a failure.
Yeah. Somebody who, because we didn't have him early in the season, but we had him late, Okay, the next beyond that, am I too wild to throw out somebody like Hamaker?
I have absolutely no idea. My mind cannot bring any sort of Hammaker outdoor stuff to the forefront. The little men inside my brain are rushing through the filing cabinets trying to find any sort of Hammaker outdoor information, and they can't. So I don't know if
23 outdoors when he came back, the speed was great, but there was a lot of crashes.
Okay, how about this? Kitchen will be the best rider on Pro Circuit.
Yes.
Is it guaranteed the Masterpool will be the second best rider on Pro Circuit?
Not guaranteed, but most likely.
See, I think I could see Hammaker being better than Masterpool.
Yes, I agree with that. I was going to say I can see Seth being better, but I think so. I can't say I'm guaranteed that Ty is the second best there. I can see Seth stepping over that, but also in the same breath, I'm not 100% lock on it.
Okay. Also, in the spirit of teams, Triumph, Jalik Swell won't be back until Redbud sort of time, still dealing with the Achilles injury. Styles Robertson is 100%, his wrist is fine. Mikkel Harrop is joining the team for the full outdoor season, no matter what. Even if Jalik comes back and they're running 5 riders, he is locked in. Jordan and Austin are, of course, continuing on. Who is the best rider on that team at the end of the season? Wait, are you cut out then? Are you
I'm laughing. I don't know.
It's Harrop.
You are going to go Mikkel. Okay.
It's Harrop. Give me a nickel for Mikkel because...
Nickel for Mikkel. I'm going to go Jordan.
I think Harrop's going to be really fucking good versus expectations because, again, he's a Danish rider with a weird name. So with all due respect, I think there's a lot of riders at Parla, a lot of fans at Parla who are going to be very surprised when he's capable of running in the points.
Yeah.
But I think Harrop's going to be really, really good. I've bet someone that he's going to be on the podium once this year, which I feel like is a fairly safe bet.
Oh, that's a safe bet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he wins a moto at some point, maybe. Like, I think he's got something good here. I think he's going to be good.
If we're going to go really outside, we teams, I gotta say it, J Mart.
Yes, maybe we should have gotten there sooner. 5 to 8.
The man has nothing to lose. 3 races. I wouldn't say career is over. This man has nothing to lose. And I know a few people started joking with him about like the fact that he's doing like 3 40-minute motos already kind of thing.
Yeah, I think 5 to 8, which could very easily turn into a podium.
I think the man. I think we have a bad moto, but I think the man podiums at the opening 2 rounds in a moto. Here's their one. At Star, outside of Deegan, who is the second best guy? Over the opening 3 rounds, I actually think it'll be Jeremy.
No, I think without doubt it'll be Jeremy because he'll be better than Thrasher and Moseman.
Yeah. Is Max making the opening round, right?
No.
I'm sad.
I heard he isn't making the opening rounds.
Nice try for a save there.
I heard.
You heard, really?
No, so yeah, like in my mind, yeah, the hierarchy at Star is clear. Deegan's the best, J-Mart will be second, and then Moseman and Thrasher will do something. Who knows?
I guess in the sense we keep talking about this, I guess the hierarchy at every team is pretty much, is it lock and key? Because it's Deegan at Star, it's Kitchen at PC, it's Hymas at Honda.
Well, Triumph isn't, because we just disagreed.
Triumph isn't, yeah, we disagreed. Here's the weird one. Do we tackle the Austin question?
I hear that he's riding really good at the facility.
I heard same he's riding really good, but I also heard he was riding good at the facility.
Yes.
But I mean, let's do the elephant in the room. There's a lot of talk that he's got an expiration date in outdoors that if it's not better by, that he may not be there.
No, I think that's bullshit.
Is it bullshit? It's been floating around a lot the last 2 weeks.
I think they're very keen to kill those rumors, from what I know.
Okay. I need to do a better job of it because it is surprising when it comes from people that also are there.
Ryder D and Juju? Anything?
Well, Ryder D is a different team.
No, I just mean those 2 riders. Just anything to say on those 2 riders.
Well, Rider D is the hierarchy. I feel like a gas pretty easily. Juju.
Yes, thank you for clarifying
No
that.
problem.
We're off the teams thing. This isn't just a
We're
team
off teams.
preview
Okay,
podcast.
Jesus. Um, I lean more towards Ryder. Ryder's in a very do or die situation.
I like Ryder.
I like Ryder. I know his beginning of his pro career was rough. I don't know if it was just used to being the big man in amateur, some entitlement, what it is, but I really feel like he's kind of figured out his shit, and he's in a weird situation. Again, some of these guys were talking about like, yeah, it's obvious. Okay, you would pick him over Cochran, but we also still just don't know the status of that team and those programs for next year. Especially if Ryder wants to do if he needs a jumping off point, if something happens, whatever it is, I feel like he needs to perform early in the season to get people's attention. So I think Ryder will be good across the opening rounds.
I agree. I very much support Ryder as a rider. Haha. I also think the Juju will be significantly better. We saw a massive rise in Supercross, so I believe we'll see a similar rise in outdoors, which of course will equal lower down the order, but I think the leap from last year will be similar. Maybe he goes from being a fringe top 10 guy to more of a 5 to 8 guy consistently. Did we do a disservice to Marchbanks and Adams when we were...
Maybe a little bit. Garrett had some decent rounds at the end of last year, but man, it's just the whole full field, him being a bigger guy.
No, but Drew's fucking massive now as well.
He's still not as big as Garrett. I feel like he's tall, but he hasn't filled. Garrett's got a couple years on where Garrett filled. I'm not saying Garrett's huge, but you know what I mean.
I think Drew might be pushing Garrett now. If we did factual research on this and Drew ended up being bigger than Garrett, I wouldn't be surprised.
Let me see if I can get a quick answer on that. Continue.
This is a bad time to play that game because we're very much at the end of this podcast.
That's fine.
I don't know if there's anyone else really that stands out from 250s that needs to be talked about. Dylan Schwartz?
He had a very good run this last weekend at those GH races. He was basically the best non-factory 250 guy. I still worry a little bit BarX switching programs. Like, it's a little easier to mask in Supercross, but they've had some bike issues. Even when we were there, they were at the GH thing. 2 of their 3 bikes were having issues. I'm a little worried about him for there. He's the best guy on that program outdoors wise. I think he could, again, it's a stacked field, so I think a good result for him is being inside the top 10, which I think he's capable of in different motos. Got to find the consistency though.
Anyone we haven't spoken about in 250s that deserves a moment in the sun?
Club Scott, what about Reynolds? Are we out? Top 10s? Yay, nay?
He'll be fine. Like nothing. I don't think he's going to grab headlines, and I don't think he'll really be talked about much. But he'll be around and not terrible. Like he'll be acceptable. I just don't think it will be earth-shattering.
Okay.
What about Romano or Towers?
I don't know. Romano still has never had his knee fixed. I don't know how bad it is. I'm a little concerned there. Saying both him and Towers are I'm very outside on knowing what's going to happen there. Both of them could be in. Again, the field just gets so deep. It's rude to say, but I think both of them are going to have maybe a tough couple opening rounds getting settled in. And part of that too is like as much as I was joking about, like I'm close with the Phoenix guys. Their outdoor program outside of like Dylan's results has never been like their focus. In the 250s, it's going to be interesting. I know Nick and Gavin both likely set up how the bikes handle, but we'll also see from a power standpoint.
We're clear on the fact that we're more excited for 450s than we are 250s.
A little bit, yes. From a title championship standpoint, I am really excited for 250s from like 4th on down. I just see a lot of parity that could happen. Also, tooting one of my own guys' horns, but I will say it if I'm not shocked if I see a top 10 at the opening round. Long Avery is. I saw him ride a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty gnarly. Like the kid is riding phenomenal. He'll get better as he gets east. He is really good when it's technical and rough. Okay. I think he'll be the best rookie. I'm trying to think who else is a rookie for Pro Motocross. Him, Parker Ross. Do we have any other rookies?
Drew. Yeah, I was going to say if you want to count Drew, obviously he only did 1 round last year. Harrop?
Harrop's a rookie. Never mind. Harrop will be the best rookie. If that counts.
Harrop's going to be good. I really believe in Harrop. Also,
here's the tough one. Mikkel goes out and he's the best guy on trying 30 outdoors. Does he really go back to GPs next year?
I don't know, because he has got a contract, but also it's with Triumph, so they can change that quite easily if everyone wants to. I think he'll open eyes. I think he's going to open eyes. Again, Danish with a weird name. So a lot of people are going to be out before it's even started. Really nice guy as well, so a lot of people are going to be in on him very soon once they see him in interviews and stuff. What a great summer for Lewis with Harrop and Patrell and Guillot and Prado and Anstey eventually. And we're fucking basically back in GPs. It's the summer of Lewis. It also could potentially be the summer of Yoshimura, because not only do they have Hunter and Jett back on track, Chance Hymas should be very, very, very competitive in 250s. Of course, they'll all be competitive because of the power that Yoshimura brings to their Honda HRC progressive machines. And you can rely on similar power by heading to yoshimura-rd.com and seeing all that they have to offer for your motorcycle. There's a very easy shop tab on that website. And the options from there are endless, to be honest. You'll learn a lot about the different options that the company has to offer, from apparel to merch to exhausts to even some other minor accessories. A lot going on at Yoshimura, a lot more than you maybe expect, so a lot to check out, which is also a nice synopsis of what is coming up in Pro Motocross. A lot to check out indeed. And speaking of checking out, that's us checking out of this podcast, unless you have any final thoughts.
How long till Davies comes back?
I think like 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, so we're looking better for the final 3, basically, if we give him a couple weeks to prep.
Yeah, or maybe you just turn attention to SMX, where he could very easily win.
True.
But I think Pierce Brown maybe at the end of the year, but maybe not.
I'm going to say maybe not. It's been a few weeks since I asked. I was told most likely not this year, but we were talking about Pro Motocross, so maybe back for SMX.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Any other final thoughts?
No.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you to Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Motorex, and Fox Racing for all of their support of this podcast. Thank you to you people for listening on an off weekend, but very much an on weekend coming up. As not only do we have Fox Raceway, we also have MXGP. So this quiet weekend malarkey will be a thing of the past, thankfully, because no one wants that. We'll be back next week to discuss round 1 of Pro Motocross. As per usual, your regularly scheduled broadcasting will return, which is great news for everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching, and we will see you next week.